Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream today. Very exciting news. If you missed it from the update this morning, I'm streaming. We're doing a little bit of a celebration stream, a little bit of a Q&A. We're going to chat about some things. First and foremost, the fact that finally we can talk about it. We can announce it. I am officially narrating the audiobook for Behind the Mirror, Inside the World of Big Brother. There's a whole story sort of attached to this. So lots of questions I can answer. It is also my partner anniversary on Twitch, yeah. So just figured I'd pop on a stream. Talk about the audiobook. Maybe do some final analysis on the week before the episode tonight. And then you know, that's mostly it. You can pre-order the audiobook in the same place as the regular book. There are now 2 additional links. One is to Libro FM and the other one is to Audible. It should be available on all platforms eventually. It is sort of slowly popping up. It is also on Apple. I assume it will get to Spotify. I don't know if it's there yet. Oh, there's so many things on my screen. Libro.fm is great. Yeah, Libro is how I get my audiobooks. So I'm just thinking of the 47th. So basically, you know, Audible is Audible. Thank you for all the subscriptions, guys. There's so much on my screen. It's hard to see them all. But yes, it will be on Audible. So Libro FM is the other option I put on the website. But it should be available again on other audiobook platforms. But Libro is like an independent audiobook like outlet seller. Basically, you can like it works similar to Audible. It's just that if you want it to be, you can have like a subscription. You can also just buy outright, like most places. But they will like you can pick a local or independent bookstore and essentially buy it from them, like give them the like part of the revenue from the sale, as opposed to, again, like buying from like Amazon or Spotify or whatever. And the thing I like about Libro as well is that like they have their own app, yes, but you can also just get the raw files and use whatever app you want. But a lot of people are locked into the like Audible or Spotify sort of ecosystem, so that also makes sense if you listen to it there. Brittany, thank you for the 75th. But yeah, then there's also like Libby and places for library stuff. Kara, I think I saw your comment last night. You mentioned that it was on Audible. And I was like, what? And then I swear to you, like 30 seconds later, I got a text from my agent saying, hey, it's up on Audible. I had a big reaction on stream visually, but I didn't say anything. Because I was like, okay, I guess we're announcing it tomorrow morning because the website wasn't ready or anything. Spotify has a countdown and you can pre-save it. Oh, that's good. Do you have the link for that? I tried Googling it. Spotify. Behind the Mirror audiobook. Oh, yeah, there it is. Yeah, you can pre-save it. It says 75 days. That's wrong. It should say, isn't it? That's wrong, right? Yeah, is it? Maybe it's not wrong. Hold on. Is it wrong? 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42. No, it's right. It's right. 74 days. Wow. That's more days than I thought it was. 74 days feels long, but it is just over 2 months. Anyway, obviously very excited about this. I'm a big audiobook person. So being able to narrate, so it's it says 12 hours. That is the estimate. It may or may not. I would say there's a chance it's longer. And be thinking of the 57th because I have not recorded it yet. But so okay. So this is sort of the story of how this happens. So when we sold the book to Sourcebooks, we tried to make it part of the contract that if they made an audiobook, I would narrate it because we thought it made sense. The book is written in my voice from my perspective. Like literally I say I in it. And I podcast for a living. So it didn't really make sense to us that anybody else would narrate an audiobook. However, how this works generally is that the publisher sells the rights to a different place who then produces the audiobook. So there was some stuff that needed to happen. For a little while, it seemed like I might need to actually audition to potentially be chosen as the narrator. I guess they might want me to prove that I'm capable of it before they allow me to narrate a book that an audiobook that they're producing. I did not end up having to audition. We were able to send them some like podcast numbers and podcast examples of me talking. And they were like, okay, this sounds good. Um, and so we've been trying to schedule, and then trying to get all of like the links up and working, because it's kind of down to the vendors, places like Audible, and Spotify and whatever, um, to get these links up. So it's just been a whole process to like waiting for everything to get up. As you can see, there's no artwork yet, for the audiobook version, because they have not finished the like Square audiobook artwork yet. And I've been pushing, like, I don't care if we don't have the artwork yet. I don't care if we don't have a sample of the audiobook out yet. Like, I think we should just have a link up and ready to go, because I'd love to be able to talk about the audiobook while the season is still on. Um, so that has been part of the struggle, but it popped up on Audible last night. And so it's like, all right, now's the time, finally, after everything's been finalized. Um, so the plan is, it's like a whole professional operation here. I shortly after the season ends, I actually was trying to, when we were doing the scheduling, I wanted to record during the season, um, because I thought it would be so fun to do like an update from a hotel in LA and be like, hey guys, I'm here to record my audiobook, but here's the update. um, However, we were not able to schedule it during the season. It's coming after, which is probably better for my, mental health. Um, but basically, I will be going to LA for genuinely a full week, to record in a studio with like a producer. Um, and it's just going to be like all day for like 6 days, uh, recording the audiobook. Very excited. Um, so I do not have a lot of experience narrating. Obviously, I do a lot of podcasting. However, when I did the copy edit for my book, I've actually read my book out loud twice, all the way through. Because I was like, okay, in the event that I do end up getting to narrate this, why don't I just do a practice run while I'm like copy editing? So I recorded myself reading the book, um, and that's where we got like the rough estimate of the timing. But I was going fairly quickly, so I think it will be longer when I actually do it. But that was very like interesting. I then listened to it back afterward, like I listened to my own bootleg audiobook. And I it was very interesting. I feel like I learned a lot from the start of when I was doing it to the end. Um, because when I started doing it, when I started this like recording, um, I was like very hesitant to, like, I didn't know what to do with quotes. I was like, should I do voices? Should I, um, like, how do I differentiate a quote from prose? Um, and like just sort of experimenting with that. Um, and then, just just like experimenting with different levels of like enthusiasm and drama. And I felt like by the end I was doing pretty well. There are parts of the book, I have read it multiple times and now also multiple times out loud, that continue to make me emotional as I'm reading it. And I'm like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? So I did that. I then read it again. I didn't record it the second time. But I did it again for the final read, for the final proofread. And it's very fun. It's very fun to read through. But obviously I'm like, okay, well, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. So listen, you know me. I'm a bit of a grinder. Like I really I like working hard on things. I want to make sure I'm doing it right. So I actually I hired an audiobook narrator to coach me up a little bit. So I did I spent like an hour with an experienced audiobook narrator who I was able to workshop some things with. Learned a lot from him. One thing I thought was interesting was because basically like he helped open my eyes to like different methods of reading, because I think that I was approaching, and not that it was bad, but I was approaching it like I would a podcast, like I would right now. Like when I'm talking to you right now, I'm projecting. I'm talking to the chat. And I'm like, you know, more energetic speaking right now than I would be like if I was just talking to one person. And so basically what he said was like, there's another way you could do this, which is like this sort of intimate one-on-one thing. You are speaking to the single listener. And that's more like, okay, now we're talking just the two of us. And this is the sort of vibe of the narration rather than the, you know, larger situation. And so that was interesting to me, especially because what I found was that if I sort of like dropped, because you don't think of that. Like for me, at least, like if I'm reading a book, if I'm doing something, I want to like be high energy. But what I found was that it was such great advice for me, I think, because if I drop the energy and I go a little more like low key intimate, it gives me more dynamic range to then turn up the energy when it needs to turn up, if that makes sense. Because that was an issue I was having where it was like, especially with certain chapters with a lot of build, I was like struggling to find more places to go. And when I'm doing big quotes, like when I'm doing like, you know, iconic moments from Big Brother, and I'm going from like high energy, big time quote to my prose, which is also high energy. And I'm like, how am I differentiating these things? It was very good to know about like the range stuff. And then also the other thing was, speaking of like Big Brother moments, like I'm quoting people from the show. You've seen many people reading the book have seen these clips. They know what the quote is. They know the person's voice. And so it's like, should I try to match that voice? Should I try to do an impression at all? Like impression, no way. I'm not doing an impression in the audio. That would be annoying. But should I do any kind of like subtle voice shift? Like, should I do some kind of like, again, like differentiator? Um, should I try to match the quote from the show? Like, okay, this is how they said it on the show. So let me try to match that. Um, and he said you can. It seems like you know and you're good at it. Can I give you an example? There's a big one, but I don't want to give it to you. There's maybe some other ones. So, like for instance, I'm doing some like Dr. Will quotes, and I'm like trying to do them in the way that Dr. Will did them. And basically what he said was, you don't need to do it the same because this is a different medium. This is a different thing. It's not about their words or what the moment was. It's about the text. And so instead of trying to match the moment, what you could do is make it your own. And so I tried that, and I actually felt like it worked really well. And so that's another like big thing that I'm going to try to do, I think, which is not try to mimic, say, Dr. Will, but instead like divorce it from the context and read it just as the text. How would I do this? How would I speak these words? In terms of like what I think they mean for the story right now in this spot. And so that's another thing I'm keeping in mind. But yes, very, very excited about it. Like saying it the way like so I can try and give an example. It's hard to like read. He was like, "Do you feel comfortable just like doing it in front of me?" And I was like, "I think so." But like even as a podcaster who does this all the time, it still is a lot to just go into like performing mode. Okay, so for instance, here's a quote from Dr. Will. This is the way that my instinct, my initial thought for how to read this would be. I can try it at least. You have to ask yourself, can anyone take pleasure in watching groups of people get angry at each other and tear each other apart verbally, psychologically, and emotionally? I can. And I sit there and I do it every day. That's a quote from Dr. Will. That's me trying to embody Dr. Will. I've never tried this before, so this might not even be different. But like, then there's a sort of like, okay, now let me try to divorce it from me trying to be Dr. Will. Let me just take just the text. This one might be the same. I don't know, because that's not entirely Dr. Will. You have to ask yourself, can anyone take pleasure watching groups of people get angry at each other and tear each other apart verbally, psychologically, and emotionally? I can. And I sit there and I do it every day. Yeah, that's mostly the same. That's not a good example. I'm sorry. It was different. I actually think I might have preferred the first one. But I don't know. I'd have to listen to it back. There is a difference. But I think it's because I was trying to make there be a difference. I think that my instinct would be to read it in that way. Because, okay, let me try and do it as Dr. Will, which is sort of I'm trying to think of, okay. You have to ask yourself, can anyone take pleasure in watching groups of people get angry at each other and tear each other apart verbally, psychologically, and emotionally? I can, and I sit there and I do it every day. That's kind of more in the style of how Dr. Will says it to my memory. He's a lot more upbeat and less obviously arrogant, I would say. Whereas when I'm reading it, I'm trying to tap into the arrogance of it. um, but yeah, like the point is that like basically what he said was there is no one right way to do it. That just like what I learned was that these are all tools that I can take that like you can approach it in different ways. And for me, a good way to approach something is like think about the end, like think about the emotion of it or the vibe of it, and then you read it differently based on that. And I bet, I mean, if I could find the actual clip, I doubt I could find it quickly. Dr. Will take pleasure in watching. Oh man, I came close there. I can't find it easily. Am I doing Janelle quotes? Okay, so that's another one. That's so something like Janelle is even harder because the way Janelle talks is so different than the way I talk. Um, quote from Janelle. My father taught me how to play chess when I was a little girl. I do something differently with each guy I play. I let James win because I don't want him to think I'm really smart. I really want to know, or I really want to see who the smartest guy is. That's why I play chess. That's me trying to be Janelle. And then there's another approach that I could try, which is like, all right, how would I do this if I wasn't trying to sound like Janelle? My father taught me how to play chess when I was a little girl. I do something differently with each guy I play. I let James win because I don't want him to think I'm really smart. I really want to see who the smartest guy is. That's why I play chess. That's why I play chess. That's why I play chess. You know. So then that's sort of more of, yeah, that's more divorced from the context I have in my own head, not trying to be Janelle. Um, so it's, I think, just like a matter of like figuring out which one fits in each given situation or which approach can fit. Um, do I have any Johnny Mac in there? I don't think I do, actually. For me, like the important thing is, so like for instance, I took out the middle bit. What I'm the like one of the things I want to make sure I'm doing is making sure that you understand the difference between the quote and my own text. So it's pretty easy when I say something like she told us, but sometimes it's not as easy. So like I'm talking about Kaser. I'm going from my own prose to a quote. I say, he explained to the audience that he'd be praying 5 times a day in the house. You kind of have a biased opinion going in for the first time because of the whole war with Iraq. So like that's a quote that I go straight into without queuing it up. And I intentionally didn't try super hard to differentiate them. But like, I don't want you to think in the audiobook that it's me when it's a quote or vice versa. So that's where it's like, okay, what works best for this quote where you know exactly what it is? So it's like, he explained to the audience that he'd be praying 5 times a day in the house. You kind of have a biased opinion going in for the first time because of the whole war with Iraq, a fellow contestant said. It's like, there's that. So just fun stuff. I'm super excited. I'm super excited to play around, to work with a producer as well who can like help me determine which one's best in the moment and all that stuff. Catherine with $5 bought the Audible. Thank you so much. But yes, those are the things I'm thinking of. Second time I read, so yeah, so that's let me see if I can try it one more time. He explained to the audience that he'd be praying 5 times a day in the no. Let's go. He explained to the audience that he'd be praying 5 times a day in the house. You kind of have a biased opinion going in for the first time because of the whole war with Iraq, a fellow contestant said of him. That was like more, I tried to be more intimate there. I didn't. One thing that we noticed in the call was that like I'm trying to the speaker tags. I'm trying to remember what he said. I recorded it, so I'm gonna like listen back. There was something about the speaker tags that I needed to think about, but I don't remember what it was. The audiobook is available for purchase. Pre-order purchase. Yes, Jacob. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm really hoping that it ends up working out really well. Is there an audiobook I really like? Oh, I love a lot of audiobooks. But like for me, the narrator is so crucial to any audiobook, and so I really want to make sure I nail it. I really am not a fan of like the old school narration, which is more like, he explained to the audience that he'd be praying 5 times. No, that's it. He explained to the audience that he'd be praying 5 times a day in the house. You kind of have a biased opinion going in for the first time because of the whole war with Iraq, A fellow contestant said of him. You know what I mean? Where it's just like so dry. That's like the way that people used to narrate audiobooks. I really like the conversational style. I listen, Michael Kramer and Kate Redding are legends, but I am not the biggest fan of them. Of their style, I would say. Um, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Yeah, there are a lot of very good narrators out there. Are we gonna have the book in libraries? So people have been requesting that libraries get it. I imagine that's just generally how libraries end up with books. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions. We can do a little Q&A. Any questions about the book or the audiobook or the season? Do they do anything in editing sound to differentiate when it's prose and when it's quotes? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't think anything like super specific, but can I read one of the chapters in Vinny's book? in Vinny's voice? Am I talking about Kevin Jacobs' game in the book? I do mention Kevin Jacobs, I believe. Yes, I do mention Kevin Jacobs, but it's only a mention. I'm not really talking about BB Can, um, except to basically dunk on them for removing feeds. Kevin Jacobs also did help me with the book. He put me in touch with a player from the UK, um, who was really helpful, because I wrote a chapter about some international versions of the show. It's showing in Libby already. Cool. Am I getting paid more as the narrator? So, yes, but it's not a lot, especially because I'm the author. It was like that's another like pro to using me as the narrator is that they don't have to pay me as much. Um, so I mean, jokes on them. I would have done it for free, but but it's not much. Any added sections in Audible? No, not at the moment. Just bought from Libro. Got to support Aaron and my local independent bookstore. Very, very good. Will I be playing a difficult game about climbing part 2? I actually would like to. I just saw that it came out like yesterday. Any cameos in the audiobook? No, not at the moment. I obviously it would have been interesting to like get people to do their own voices, but that actually would have been a nightmare. There's way too many voices. There's like absolutely no way that I could ever do that. Even getting one person to do a voice would be, I think, a whole process. Am I talking about Tyler? Um, how much do I talk about Tyler? Not a ton, I will say. To my memory, it's having trouble. I'm just searching. Come on. All right. I'll let you know in a second. Uh, I don't really talk much about. I mention Kevin Jacobs more than Tyler. Really, I mostly just mention Tyler as part of talking about how season 20 is part of like a trend with competitions. Um, do I ever feel writer? Did I ever feel writer's block? Honestly, no. Um, Almost the opposite. I felt like the biggest thing for me was I have too much to write about. How do I narrow this all down? It's a 400-page book, and I don't talk about a player like Tyler. Like, it was really just like, how do I cut through all of this history and tell a coherent story that builds on itself and explains the show well enough while still trying to hit as many of the high points as possible. Um, the only times I got like blocked in any significant way was like, oh, I don't like how I wrote that sentence. How can I say that better? Did I see the Traders Canada cast? I mean, I know Omer and Kevin are on. That's really all I care about. Is there a part I'm particularly excited to narrate? I think that goes along with, is there like a favorite chapter? I actually mentioned this. I'm happy to see Venus too. I'm friends with Kevin and Omer. I don't really know. I mean, I like Venus from afar. um, I did an interview with like a news show last week, and they asked me about my favorite chapter. Um, and uh, it's definitely the stuff about Taylor's my favorite. Is there something I would change or add to the book because of this season? Genuinely, I think that there's like everything that's happened with Rachel um, could easily have fit into the book, or could fit into like the next chapter. You know what I mean? Do I speak objectively about the players, or do I give my opinion on their games? Um, I mean, I would say, what is objective? I would say the book is pretty opinionated overall. Uh, it's very much from my perspective. Um, what are Vince and Morgan doing right now? Oh my god. He just like buried his face into her thigh. What word processing program did I use? I used Scrivener. When is the deadline on getting a signed copy? You still have until you still. I don't have a definitive deadline yet, but I will at some point. Who would be the funniest former house guest to voice the audio? I don't know. You're a writer. Having too much to write about is more common than writer's block. It's a big challenge. That makes sense to me. KC, thank you for the $5. Taylor, thank you. I have talked with Taylor about the audiobook and different strategies I want to use. If Behind the Mirror had a secret Easter egg just for superfans to discover, something playful or symbolic, what would it be? There are definitely a few bits in there that that if you're like a big fan of either the show or the podcast, you might be able to be like, oh, I see what you did there. I'd be surprised. I mean, I can't think of them all off the top of my head. It was just like, as I was writing, I just put stuff in there that I was like, oh, there are people that probably won't understand this. Well, like, not that it would stand out to them, like, what does this mean? But like, they won't get that it's a joke or something or a reference. But I wouldn't say it's like loaded with them or like that they're like super important or anything. Just tiny little nods. Just like when I'm on a podcast and I just like make a joke under my breath that I know that the co-host won't get, but that maybe two people from the audience will, and they'll make a comment and be like, "Oh, I that was a funny joke there." Do I mention the stock watch? I don't think I do actually. It's a bit too in the weeds. Does the book explain what happened to Benny the squirrel? Benny the squirrel is not in the book. Did I rewatch any particular seasons / episodes several times to help write? So I think the way you're asking the question, the answer is no. But I did like watch episodes. Basically, like I didn't watch or rewatch anything to like get ideas. I already had what I wanted to write. And then as I was writing, I would go and try to find quotes or moments that would fit what I was trying to write from the episodes, if that makes sense. So like I was mentioning, I was reading some of the stuff from the Kaser chapter. So for instance, when I'm writing about Kaser and how he struggles to fit in the early days of Big Brother 6, I'm like, okay, how do I show this? What is a good way of explaining this in a really succinct and factual way? And then I go to episode 2 and I look for some moments about Kaser, and I find Ashlea talking about how you kind of have a biased opinion going in because of the whole war with Iraq. I'm like, that quote fits exactly what I'm trying to represent here. So that's kind of the process generally. Speaking of the stock watch, how is it that Keanu went from a 1 to a 2 to a 3 these past 3 weeks and still his stock price has gone down? The stock watch formula punishes you for being in the red. You get a boost from moving up, but if you're only moving up 1 and it's that low, it'll still be negative. Because basically, we don't want players who are really bad to be making money off of tiny little movements up and down. That was the idea of it. Because then it would, because like the overall idea of the stock watch is that you want to pick a player you actually think is going to do well, not just a player you think is going to like moderately improve, like tiny improvement from a 1 to a 2. Do I focus mainly on old school Big Brother, or do I reference the different eras equally? I kind of run through them. I mean, there's a lot focused on the old school era, just to like set the stage for what the show is. So a bunch on Big Brother 2. Like, okay, in terms of like running through a season, there are 3 main seasons that I really go all the way through. In relative detail. And I'd say those are season 2, season 10, and season 24. As like stopping points along the way in the journey for the show. And then I touch on a lot of other seasons. There's a lot about season 3. There's a lot about season 6. There's a lot about season like other seasons, you know, like but it's really just a matter of like what fit the best for telling the story. And so we go through the show, the show's history. I mean, about the evolution here. 8. I'd say it's fairly equal. It's fairly even throughout new school, old school in general. Wow, when I did the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire version of Big Brother, were all of the questions from the research for the book? Yes. So when I did, for those that remember, we did a Who Wants to Be a Big Brother Millionaire, and my criteria for the questions that I put in that quiz podcast we did was that I had to know the answers to them offhand without looking them up. However, I was in the middle of writing a book about the show. It was a self-imposed criteria, for the record. But yes, there was a lot of stuff that was fresh in my mind because of the book. What is the balance of info in the book for people that don't know the show versus superfans? That was like one of the most important things to me when I wrote it. Was I wanted to make sure it was perfectly reasonable for somebody who knew nothing about the show to follow, while still making it exciting and fun for people that already know the show. So I did my absolute best to avoid massive info dumps on like structure. Basically, when I talk about season 2, I'm going over the story of season 2, its historic importance, why it is the way it is from production standpoint, the legacy of Dr. Will, and all the while I'm sneakily teaching you the game. by explaining the events of season 2, if that makes sense. So all of the main things are things that somebody who knows the show already would be like, oh, this is fun. I'm reading about season 2 and Dr. Will and all the things he did, and all this extra background knowledge that I might not have known about, things that were happening outside the house, reasons why decisions were made from production. But then at the same time, if you didn't know the show, I'm sneakily teaching you how the show works. And stuff like that. And if you already knew, then I'm hoping it mostly just breezes right by you. Or like the big thing for me is that I don't think that knowing a thing necessarily makes you not enjoy it. When I read a book and I watch an adaptation of that book, if anything, I want to see the things I've already seen before or read before because I want to see them in a different form. And so I think that there's a lot of value to, I know what's going to happen, but I want to see it played out in this really entertaining narrative that has been put together for me. So there are definitely moments where I am doing misdirects or building tension for a result that the reader probably already knows, but I'm hoping that they will enjoy the build-up anyway. Sort of like bringing them back to a moment, like giving them a space to envision what it was like to have experienced it for the first time, not knowing what was coming, even though you do know what was coming, and now you're excited for when I drop the reveal in the book. That's like what I'm going for some things. How did I pull myself from I should write a book to I'm writing a book? Did I have mental barriers to get past before I could start? I for sure did not think I could do it. Well, okay. I felt like I could write a book, but there were absolutely parts of me that were like, I can't actually do it though. And because like it's I felt like I could write a book for myself. I could self-publish a book for this audience that would probably like it. But the idea of actually being good enough to write a book that could sell to a publisher, that would be like actually good, felt like a thing that I could safely say I was capable of without ever actually having to try it. And then when the opportunity presented itself, I was like, oh, I guess I've got to try it now. But like the thing for me is the same was true of podcasting. I didn't think I'd be good at podcasting. I knew I could analyze strategy, but I didn't like the idea of actually having an audience, people liking me, was far out of my sort of realm of even fantasy. But the way I've sort of lived my life is I'm not allowed to say no to something because I'm scared. If it's something I want to do or to try and it's scary, I have to just dive in head first. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And hopefully I can figure it out along the way. And luckily for me, I've pretty much always been able to figure out a way, which helps give me the confidence to jump in head first to a new thing. And so, yeah, that's sort of the mentality. It really was just like, okay, somebody's asking me if I want to write a book. I can't say no. I'm going to say yes. And now people are expecting me to write a book. So I have to just try. And so then I tried. And then they liked it. And I was like, okay. Wow, I guess I'm a writer now. Casey, think with $10 pre-ordered audio and signed copy. Been a silent follower for years. Appreciate your knowledge, big brother. Look forward to learning more. What's my favorite season/house guest covered in the book? I have mentioned before, but the Taylor stuff is my favorite. I'm also certainly partial to the Dan stuff. But the Taylor stuff is definitely my favorite. What was my writing schedule like? Did I do 8 to 5 or whenever I had time? It just consumed me. There was no schedule. It was every waking moment I was thinking about the book. I was waking up and my first thought was, okay, so after I say this, I'm going to say this. Oh, and this is a good way to say this. Oh, and I can transition this way by going through here. And then I would get on the computer and I'd write it. And then I'd go and I'd work out. And the whole time working out, I'd be thinking, okay, so then wait, what if I introduce this here? And then I can pay that off once I get past this. And I'm thinking about the way I want to word things. I'm like rehearsing lines in my head. And then I get back to the computer and I'm writing them down. And then I'm writing. And that was basically it. That was the writing process. There was no breaking. It was just a constant stream of it. Was just constantly on my mind. Probably not the healthiest way to do it, but Hid, thank you the 42nd. Question from Taylor. Are there any stories / chapters / narratives of the game I cut for the book that I wish I had told after completing the book? Honestly, kind of no. The thing about that is that there are people, friends of mine, that after I finished the book and I was like, hey, I want to send you a copy of the book, whatever, that I realized after I finished the book, I was like, oh, now I feel bad. You're not really in the book. And I'm just like realizing like, oh no, like when I wrote the book, I would completely looked at it from the lens of telling a story and had zero amount of like, I want to make sure I include this person or this person. It was just like ruthless. What do I need to tell the story I want to tell? And afterward, I felt bad because I realized that there were people and stories that I did not talk about, that I did not tell. And some of them I really like, and I don't want them to feel slighted or that they're not important parts of Big Brother, because they are. They just weren't a necessary component of the specific narrative that I was trying to tell. So that's my biggest regret, but like, or not regret, but like that's my biggest thing when it comes to things I had to cut. But like the thing about that is that those aren't things I cut. They were never part of it. There wasn't really anything I strictly cut from the book. I had an idea of what I wanted to do going in, and then I did it. And it's just that some things weren't included because they weren't part of that story. But do I wish I had told things like, for instance, I do talk a little bit about Rachel in the book, but she's not a big part of it by any means. I mentioned Big Brother legend Rachel Riley. I talk about how the season 12 got boring after she left. I talk about how she came back and how she won, very, very briefly though. I talk about how good she was at competition. So like I bring up Rachel, but I'm not telling Rachel's story. Because it just wasn't part of the narrative I was telling at the time. Now, if I were to write the book, like Rachel coming back and embodying a a big part of Big Brother's narrative now. I think Rachel has always been a legend, has always been a Mount Rushmore player, but now she is, I think, so much more integral to the essence of Big Brother's story to me, because she's a huge part of the trajectory that the show's gone in, the way that she left this season in particular. Like if Rachel had just won this season, it would have been like, okay, well, Rachel's now important to the story because she's the first two-time winner and because she's like such a big character. But she's not really part of the story of the show in the way that I'm trying to tell it. But because she left the way that she did, if I were to write another chapter, she would be at the heart of that chapter, because she not only is a legend and all of those things that would have been true otherwise, but she's also a key part of a particular narrative. So very long answer to that question, but that's sort of the thought process there. What's the formula mathematically? I couldn't tell you if I tried. I spent a few weeks making it years ago, and it's extremely complicated. Did I see Big Brother Sports Rachel X interview? I don't think so. What prompted my interest in Big Brother? I talk about that in the book, but I can maybe let me see if I can give a good answer to that question that is from the book without doing too much. Small bit from the book. This is from the introduction. I don't want to give too much away here, actually. Seeing a reflection of society condensed and made into a game was a revelation to me as a kid. It's an intoxicating fantasy with immensely broad appeal. Anybody? That's it. That's all. It's the end of the introduction, so I don't want to give it away too much. But those are two sentences that kind of answer the question. When writing about Beyond the Mirror, did I discover anything about myself that surprised me as much as the twists in the book? Kind of, actually. Part of that's in the Caser chapter. That like I made some connections that I don't think I would have thought about to my own life, my own story, to Big Brother. Did I use the audience at all, asking polls or questions that guided the direction of the show? No, not really, no. Are there seasons I didn't find myself referencing that didn't fit the narrative? Not that they're bad seasons, they just didn't fit the flow. I believe I referenced at least almost every season. Like, one thing that was important to me was that I wanted to make sure that even though I was jumping around the timeline a little bit, I wanted to be telling a relatively chronological story. And I wanted to make sure that the reader always felt like that like holes were, like the gaps were filled in. So even if I jumped ahead, I made sure to go back and let you know, here's what happened. This is what happened on this season. Um, I'm trying to think because I definitely reference pretty much every season and winner. I think it. I do. I even mentioned season 19. Season 19, I wasn't sure, but yeah, I do. So every season gets touched on, but it might be like one sentence. Did I read Q the Sun? Not until after I finished the book. There were a couple of like quotes in there I probably would have referenced if Q the Sun had come out before I wrote the book. She has some good ones from Les Moonves, and I think specifically Les Moonves that I would have been like, oh, that would have been a good quote to include. But I thought it was very good. I liked Q the Sun. I would say that like the early production stuff from my book is somewhat similar to some of the stuff in Q the Sun in terms of like we're telling a similar story about the creation of the show. But it's overall pretty different. Did I talk about the onion structure? Yes. Yes. Have I thought of making the book into a more interactive game? I have thought of it. We talked about that a little bit when the season started. There's something I would love to explore there, especially on Patreon. Always wanted to write a book, but to be honest, you don't know where to start, even though you do a lot of writing in your own job. Genuinely, I think just starting, just trying. Um, just write an opening chapter to a thing, and then see what happens from there. I mean, in terms of like practical advice, you can then try and find an agent and try and submit proposals or whatever. But in terms of like just actually writing a thing, just try starting to write. I did work with an agent. So my agent reached out to me and got the whole process started. Because I never thought it was even possible. She reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I think you'd write a great book." And she was like, not like, "Oh, about Big Brother." She was just like, "I am a fan of your content, and I think you would be a good writer. Do you want to write a book?" And I was like, "It's only been my dream since I was a kid." um, and uh, and then it was like, okay, so what book do you want to write? And I felt like writing a book about Big Brother, I already had one in me. I was like, I'm this is a thing I know a lot about. I know I can write this. And I know I already have an audience that's interested in hearing about it. So it felt like the perfect storm of like, if I want to try my hand at writing, this feels like the perfect way to give it a shot. And now that it's gone pretty well so far, hopefully I can try other things, but we'll see. Would I say that competence breeds confidence for me? I would. I would. So excited for the audiobook. Probably spend more time listening to my voice than in real life. Are there any personal moments in the book about my life? Yes. Uncomfortably so. It's partially my fault. Partially that, so like, I think I might have said this already. There was a moment early on where I'm trying to explain the impact that the show has on people, why they connect to it so much. I am the writer of this book. It only makes sense for me to talk about my own connection, why it made so much, why it connected to me so much. Um, and so I started writing like something fairly generic. Like I moved a lot. I moved around a lot as a kid. And so the idea of seeing a bunch of people interact with strangers in a competitive, hierarchical way, I could relate to because I moved around a lot as a kid. Fairly simple, easy connection. And I just felt like this is so lame. Like this is so tell, don't show. Um, and it just falls flat and it's not dynamic. And so I was like, okay, I need to show and not tell. And so I started telling a little bit of like the firsthand experience of what it was like to move around a lot as a kid. And then as I started doing that, I was like, I'm half-assing this. I need to really dive in. And so then I started explaining some of the more traumatic moments of my life. um, no, not really, not really. Just the beginning of one. um, and then I got into that, and um, and then when I submitted it to the editor, she was like, "Love the personal stuff. Let's get more." And so then I went back and I made my journey a small subplot. I connected those moments. Instead of them just being one-off examples, I sort of connected my story through the book um in a way that I hope works and doesn't feel in the way. The last thing I wanted was like feeling like I was too present, but I also wanted to make sure that I was there, if that makes sense. Um, I did not want to get in the way of the story about the show. I wanted my journey to inform the story of the show and enhance it. Is there any time where I went climbing to work things out in my mind about a chapter? No, honestly, climbing is probably the biggest break I would take from anything. I still. Was there anyone's story I was surprised worked their way into the narrative? Surprised. No, I mean, like I said, I like as soon as I knew I wanted to write about the show, I sort of thought through what the structure would look like, and it was pretty quickly that I determined this is what's in the book and this is what's not in the book. So there wasn't a lot of surprising things. You know what? No, that's not true. There were some things that were added. Um, I would say there's a surprising amount of cowboy in the book. I was a little surprised that I told the story of cowboy a little bit. Not the full story or anything, but we talk about cowboy. You really like how I wove my experience with the show into the narrative. You read the arc. That's so cool. How old was I when Big Brother premiered? 8. I'm really behind on chat, by the way. I'm catching up. Do I get to take a break between the book things in winter, Big Brother to relax? Not really. Like I said, the audiobook recording is going to be quick, and then we're going to San Francisco, and then the book is going to be published. Is it only in hardcover? For now, yes, and audiobook. Will there be a second book? If so, what would be the topic? Um, I mean, absolutely. If the show continues and there's enough content for another book about the show, I would be super down to write like a sequel or something, or any sort of thing. But I'm also like super interested in just like writing anything, whether or not it's Big Brother related. Um, I can only imagine pessimistically that it would sell a lot less if I didn't write about Big Brother, but I just love telling stories, and I'm really interested in creating my own. Thank you, Winter, for the 13th month. Would I try fiction or another nonfiction? I would love to do fiction. I would love to write a fantasy novel because that's like all I read. um, but I think it could be fun to do. Like I've mentioned this before, like like a death game kind of thing. Like keep it social strategy, um, or just like anything. I don't know. I have a few like different vague ideas of things I want to do, but um, I haven't uh, like gone full in yet into trying to explore them until we wrap up this stuff. Favorite fantasy series? Realm of the Elderlings. Um, do I play video games? Yeah, on occasion. You've read a few fictionalized strategy game books, and they're never great. You can tell they really don't get the game part. That's my problem with them. That's why I'm interested. Like, nothing inspires me more than to read or consume something that I want to really like, but don't because I don't like the way they did it. And I think if I did this, I would do something different that I think would work. And I think a lot of death game, strategy game, social strategy game stories are things that I really want to like, but just miss the mark. Um, so I'd be curious to try my hand at it. But who knows? Got to make sure I have a successful first book launch before I go too deep into another. Would I consider doing streams throughout my writing process if I do choose to write a fictional book? Eager to hear what I'd be working on next. I think so. I think that like the the Patreon in particular would be a place to explore more writing content. Um, I know a lot of writers that have Patreons um, because writing is not a very stable career. um, and so I had initially like before the reaction series kind of spawned the Patreon, I'd thought about just making a Patreon for writing. But I'm really enjoying the stuff we're doing right now with it, and I'm really happy that it kind of like went in that direction. But I think that we can absolutely also put some writing stuff in there. I have read a lot of Dungeon Crawler Carl. Long-term goals of mine. Honestly, like writing is like I can't express this enough. Just genuinely fulfilling such a lifelong dream of mine that it's hard to imagine reaching higher. I think I think the only other thing would be like actually producing a show or a movie. Um which was like the other far-fetched dream I always had. Um maybe like something like writing a book and then having it adapted into a movie would be really cool, or a show. Like helping make a show in any capacity would be really cool, or a movie. But that's like that feels very difficult to actually break into, and not something that I think would actually happen. Like the writing stuff, I always told myself like maybe when I'm old, I'll just try writing, even if it's just for myself. Whereas with like producing a show or a movie, it's like you need to really work at that in a way that I'm not sure I'm honestly willing to. Um, like to break into Hollywood in any serious capacity. Um, but you know, some smaller scale stuff on the Patreon, doing whatever, uh, could be very fun. Um, I actually I wrote. So in college, I went to college for screenwriting, and there was a project that where we had to pitch a show, and I created a horror themed survival reality show. um with a whole game system and mechanism for eliminations and strategy um that I do not remember. And I have I it is for sure lost to time. Um, but but I remember making one and feeling relatively proud of it. I thought the podcast last night was very fun. Yeah, the horror is where we part ways. Any ideas that would fit Nebula's vibe? Feels less Hollywood loving jet lag. Yeah, I mean that's the thing too, is that like um I I love working from home. Like it would be a dream to make a show, but I don't think I'd want it to be my career to like live in LA, work on set all the time. You know what I mean? Um Even in general, I don't know if I'd want to like work on set all the time. Um like I'm pretty generally content. Like I would certainly like go and do a thing for like a couple months, make a show, come back. But I wouldn't do that. I don't think I'd want to do that super regularly. Um, but who knows? Maybe in the future I'll feel differently. Um, but I would certainly like be happy to, help create things from home. uh, and I would go, yeah, I would go on a show. I'd do jet lag uh, if they wanted me on it or something. Because it would be fun. But then because I would then I'd be able to go home. Like even just like this audiobook recording, I'm gonna be in LA for a week, recording all day, every day. And it's like it's a dream to be able to record an audiobook. I think it's gonna be so much fun. Would I want to do that for a living where I'm going into a studio every day? No. I would have to figure out a way to make a studio at home. You know what I mean? I mean, this is not a studio. Audio quality in here is nowhere near the level it would need to be. But that's my fault. I can help make it better eventually. Please don't flood the jet lag guys with requests for me to be they don't need that smoke. At this point, they know who I am. If they actually wanted me on, they would know to ask. Anyway, I think that's about a nice little celebratory stream. I'm just very excited to finally be able to share about the audiobook. I've been wanting to talk about it for so long. I've been wanting to announce it, to make it available, and now it is finally there. I'm so excited to record it. And I'm excited for people to read it. I've been like, every day I refresh the Goodreads page. I think I've said this before, for like people that have gotten arcs and are writing reviews. We're up to 21 reviews, 34 ratings. And some of them are like so good. This is one of the more recent ones from Allie. Wrote, "Behind the Mirror is more than a book. It's a lifeline for anyone who has ever loved Big Brother. Taran Armstrong pours his heart and soul into every page, capturing not just the strategy and gameplay, but the humanity behind it. Reading this, I felt seen as a fan, reminded of every moment I've laughed, cried, cheered, and gasped along with the house guests. Taran doesn't just recount history, he holds up a mirror to the community, showing us why we care so deeply about this game. He reveals layers of loyalty, betrayal, courage, and vulnerability that make Big Brother unforgettable. Every story, every memory, every analysis is infused with a passion that hits you right in the heart. This book is a gift to the fandom in a time when we need it most. It reconnects us to the excitement, the heartbreak, and the triumphs that have made us love the show for decades. It reminds us that Big Brother isn't just a game, it's a reflection of human nature and the choices we make under pressure, of the bonds choices we make under pressure, of the bonds we form, and the risks we take. Taran's words give context to the strategies, depth to the drama, and meaning to the moments we've lived with week after week. For anyone who has ever stayed up late cheering for their favorites, debating every move, or feeling the sting of a blindsided eviction, this book is a reminder that we are part of something bigger. This is a community, a story, and a legacy that continues to shape us. How sweet! That made me emotional. It's just so cool. I've never put so much time and effort into a thing, and so and then like just waited for so long to see what the reaction is, and it's just been really cool to see the ARC readers. I'm really excited for all of you to get a shot to read it too. So that's what I got. Thanks again. I'll be live later tonight, of course, for the episode. We'll have the Patreon stream ready to go, along with here on YouTube and Twitch. And then podcast after that, and keep it moving. Keep it moving through the season. All right. Thanks again. Thank you for the partner anniversary celebrations on top of everything else. And I'll see all of you later tonight.